I would like to welcome you all for giving your time here tonight to spend reflecting issues that everybody's lives is touched, challenged, maybe inspired, transformed, but not everybody is able to be inspired and touched and transformed by depression and anxiety. Many aren't quite able to look at and understand it very well. So the talk is designed tonight to offer Buddhist perspective and understanding the anxiety and depression at large. More specifically to those people who are either identify themselves as sufferers, or those who have people within their inner circle whose suffering have affected them, or those who are professionals, carers, and supporters who also are in many ways affected by depression and anxiety in particular, and on top of other issues of life. The reason why Buddhist society and have a talk offered on this topic is it's not new. We have been offering these talks for some time, occasionally whenever time permits, but increasingly so these days, because of the mental health community in developed countries, you may call it, first world communities, are trying very hard to develop a good discourse on subject like this, and in very much being restricted to go forward by the model of Western psychology, and therefore having to broaden the horizons to find wisdoms and understandings from various other sources. And so Buddhist teachings have been appreciatively embraced by a large community of health professionals working in this area, and particularly psychology area, mental health. So that's why it is relevant that we offer this talk for the benefit of all, with the intention to increase people's skill and understanding of suffering, and then broaden their heart and mind to understand suffering in general, and particularly its causes, and not brush aside suffering as anti-life, but suffering as part of life. Where this is where Buddhist teachings have a very holistic approach to what suffering is and what its qualities and functions are, if we understood positively speaking. This probably can best be understood by defining where the word Buddhism comes from. The word Buddhism, of course, if you take the word ism, then it leaves us with to Buddha, which means to know. So this knowledge is not concerning the knowledge of the matter, but knowledge about consciousness. So knowledge of the mind, what we call inner science. So Buddhism really means the understanding of inner psyche, or inner workings of the mind, and its nature, and its challenges, and its capacities, and its potentials, and what ultimately mind itself is. So this places each of us a very suitable candidate to be a Buddhist, because we are all interested to know our mind. So Buddhist isn't some religious people as some people think, but actually is a very ancient philosophy which is very keenly interested to understand the mind and its role in life. And it's not a subject that some could afford to be interested, others could be just professionals, the rest could be patient. It's not like that. Every one of us has a mind, and when we don't understand our mind, then the world around us, or what we make of ourselves, or what we see in objects, or what we tell of our stories, whether it's sad story or depressive story or whatever it is, we hardly know that what we are saying or doing. So it's a consciousness. It's a becoming conscious of the consciousness. Depression is caused by unconsciousness, as most of the human sufferings are caused by unconsciousness. Unconsciousness meaning the unawareness. Whether it's physical sufferings or whether it's mental suffering, even harder. Mental suffering is much harder to know that we are creating by the way we think or way we perceive things. We have a lot of opinion about things around us, but we know very little about the knower. Suppose a knower of this object knows not of itself. So what Buddha means, the one who's awakened one, who knows the mind, and therefore all cognizable objects. So therefore we call one who completely knows the nature of the mind and potential of everyone is what we call enlightened one, awakened one. So only awakened one understands suffering and its causes and its underlying causes. Human beings, generally speaking, are mainly desirous creatures who always seek happiness from things outside of itself. And often it perceives non-causes of happiness as causes of happiness, and thus go to seek that out. So if they become successful to seek what they thought was cause of happiness is not cause of happiness. And so they're not aware that that is not cause of happiness. But at the same time they're attempting to find ability to eliminate sufferings, only if they knew what is the cause of the suffering that they have to eliminate. So, of course, because they do not know what is cause of happiness, what is cause of suffering is that much harder. So we must understand kindly that depression and anxiety is a suffering caused by unconsciousness. It may be discoursed as being emotional, sort of a kind of a chemical imbalances and all kinds of gross readings that kind of level of intelligence can gather only based on matter and biology. All sufferings are created in the mind, unconsciously. And so are all happiness are created, however short-lived the happiness are. But this happiness creator, even though succeeded to create a temporal happiness, little they do know that happiness itself is impermanent. And so when they lose the object or subject, what they thought was cause of happiness, it was, but only then, only for then, but not there afterwards. It may turn exactly opposite, particularly if you want to develop attachment to it. So what was cause of happiness was only for then, but not thereafter. It's just like the milk, it's best before. But best before means worse after. But at least we know nowadays how to mark our food. Only if we could mark our thoughts. What is best only up till such. After that, it will be cause of attachment, possessiveness, resentment, guilt, unrealistic expectation, all these things. We are not consciously aware that I'm actually holding a expired thought. Not only thought is expired, but the subject itself is irrelevant, it's not true, invalid. So when people are feeling sad and unworthy and therefore feel unuseful and don't like themselves or everything they are doing or what they have done or who they have or whatever, these are all once upon a time where there were love or happiness or friendship or gain or profit or promotion. But they were only promotion for a while, but didn't stay long. That they were friendship for a while, but not stay long. Nothing does, by the way. No milk is forever. Even the long life ones. But when you think what is short-lived as long-lived, and even everlasting one, and holding it with this unconsciousness, it becomes poison. It becomes cause of suffering. It's called mental poison. It's called klesha in Buddhism. Klesha means affliction. It obscures the consciousness of the mind, person, and not able to recognize that as that, and then misidentify something for another. Because of this, the mind is not aware of its own thoughts, its own emotions, its own validation of something. Maybe you thought you'd be happy if you had this, but how long would it last? Buddhist philosophy says that everything is impermanent. By being able to adopt that as a philosophical kind of viewpoint, you don't have to take it for long, but just for a couple of weeks, try that. See whether by knowing that everything is transient and impermanent, whether it helps you to let go things, particularly when it expires, if not before. When you can use things before it expires, have a nice feeling. But when you have only half used the milk, but the half milk is still there, but dates expired. So you have to throw that milk with some kind of a loss, disappointment. Oh, I shouldn't have got this much milk. Oh, I should have used it. And you get cranky at yourself. Not just one, not just over that, number of issues. Now the accumulation of blames, anger, and so on piles up to the mind to the extent of almost hating oneself for not doing everything right. But when the consciousness is not aware that fundamentally everything is impermanent, so the object or subject that we think is cause of happiness is only for that moment maybe. You order a nice dessert, but then you went to the toilet and took 20 minutes to get back. And then, you don't have to go to the toilet again because the food has become toilet. The dessert you paid for, but you didn't have time to eat, and it has melted. And see, nothing is for long. So all suffering of depression and anxiety and anger and guilt all comes from this wrong view, wanting to hold things to be permanent. So Buddhist teaching means it shows us the right way to think, so that if things are impermanent, say if you lost the job or someone died or you lost a position or you no longer have the same fitness or health or whatever you have, you shouldn't think it as a personal tragedy, because it is not. It is nature for all things. It happens to everyone. Why? Because it's impermanent. You don't have to be a subscriber to impermanence, then it affects you. And if you don't subscribe, it doesn't affect you. It's not like that. See, this is the law. This is the law, truth. Buddha taught this kind of truths. The belief in heaven or hell are not important. But yet people, if they did something wrong, they think they go to hell. Why do they have to believe they will have to go to hell when they're already in it? See, thinking bad thoughts and untrue thoughts is already hellish. So people are basically making their time to be depressed like hell. If you tell the story about hell being, it's very depressing. But yet people are thinking that to the extent of whole, maybe a couple of hours or whole afternoon or a couple of days in a row, they're thinking over it and brooding such negative thoughts as if it has never happened to anyone but me, and this will never change, will it? No, it will not change. As if everything has, whatever one has seen in life has not changed. So the first Buddhist response to deal with depression and anxiety is to understand whatever matter about which you are depressed or whatever, you got to know that all subjects and objects are impermanent. They never are and will be same. So thinking they are or they will be is exactly going against the tide. So that's the wrong view. This is the un-Buddha. This is the unconsciousness. This is the ordinary deluded mind thinks such wrong views and embraces those views as correct. And then believes that somebody doesn't love me or nobody cares about me. All these wrong views are sedimented. Even bricks are sedimented, sand. There is no real brick there. They're just particles rammed together and fired, and then it becomes a brick. There is actually no brick in the brick. So there's a lot of hard-line views about what happened to me, that what shouldn't happen to me, and so on. All these views that actually goes against the reality. So first, that is very important. I always treat that this understanding of one of the what we call seals of the Dharma. Seals meaning that which actually holds you and helps you. When you remember impermanence, it really makes you to think sanely and have power to let go, power to forgive, power to be kind, and so on. Otherwise, you keep holding yourself and taking yourself back into the past. We are not present. And what is the seal about this is that it makes you stay present. It makes you to stay in the present. You see? Because depression is usually all about past. Past is not a time we have. Only what we are losing, we are unconsciously giving it to the past. That is present, So we are actually losing our present time to the past by believing as something is real and permanent, and this hasn't happened before, why is it happening to me? As if one is trying to over-personalize one's difficulties too much. Another factor of the Buddhist response to suffering in general and depression, anxiety is, Buddhist teaching we don't use statistics to say, there's 1 in 5 suffers from depression. That's terrible. We say, 100 in 100 suffer from depression. That's Buddhist view. You may not like to, among others who are not diagnosed with the depression may disagree with that. But we are among the many we all have some kind of depression and sadness. Because difference between depression and sadness is, depression is prolonged sadness. Prolonged sadness. But everybody has sadness over a few issues for a couple of minutes and maybe even a couple of days, but after that you got over it, yeah. Who doesn't? Can't be. If you don't, you mustn't be a human being. It's the nature of existence. That's the second truth is, it is nature of life that suffering is, your life will be met with sufferings. Another thing about this is that not only suffering is prevalent, but suffering is, as we said before, also impermanent. So we have to now take advantage of what we agreed in the first instance. Now, if everything is impermanent, then my suffering can also be impermanent. Can I make my suffering a little bit short-lived? Yes, you can, When we know that even as a little pain or a little physical irritation we quickly go and take a painkiller or something, try to reduce the pain as quickly as possible, prevent it from reoccurring. Now, mental sufferings, like anxiety and depression, while some medication can temporarily help, but does not actually do anything to uproot it, because mental sufferings do not respond very well on the long term with medication. Mental sufferings will best respond to consciousness and awareness and mindfulness. And so, therefore, if one is able to be mindful that suffering is prevalent, and yet they are all impermanent, then one doesn't think that one should be unlike others who have no sufferings. One can, even say there may be quite a few of you tonight who works in the industry as carers, as counselors, as psychologists, and whatever nurses, and most importantly, supporters in the family. You will see that actually when you truly understand suffering of depression, anxiety, someone in your life, it actually was very hard, but actually brought some of the best qualities in you. That is kindness, that is love, that is true generosity, true commitment, true loyalty, true forgiveness. And everything that we have seen, good side of anyone, is when someone is going through the worst suffering. So therefore, we mustn't demonize suffering as anti-life, but actually, its suffering is that which teaches us some of the most amazing qualities that we all seek to have. You would have never found how much somebody does love you until you really go through so much suffering like that. So, our main response to depression, anxiety, the Buddhist teaching offers is how to reconnect with suffering and try to make use of it rather than rejecting it, rather than stigmatizing it. If it wasn't suffering, we could not be of any use to each other. We would be like the demigods. In the realm, they have nothing to do. They have no one to care for. They have no one that's their dependent, and so on. So on the human realm, at least we have emotions. We care feel somebody suffering as our own. And it doesn't make us to leave it as we have nothing to do with it. It actually brings the best in us. Some of the best skills in the mental health were only brought up by their opportunity not only to study books and theories about it, but actually holding their hands and listening stories and understanding the plight of the sufferers from the core of their heart, and then actually tailoring what best is the skill they can offer to allay their suffering through kindness, through forgiveness, through understanding. So in Buddhist teachings, we look at the virtues of suffering. We call noble truth of suffering. The truth that suffering teaches us about life is compassion. Of course, it will be good if we didn't have certain mental sufferings, because we are successful in allaying physical sufferings. Push of a button, you can allay most of the physical suffering quickly. But just as quickly you can allay those sufferings, just as quickly it creates another one. So even though all the controlling the temperature or the texture or the feeling of the cushion or whatever. You can change them, but in the underlying causes of irritability and unsatisfactoriness still will linger. So therefore, when I say what Buddha or Buddhist means, awakened means one who's not asleep or unaware of the suffering that is in the making, in the mind. Most sufferings are made in the mind and can only be resolved by the mind. It is not a curse of somebody that until they lift the curse, our suffering will stay. It's not like that. Even sufferings are impermanent, but only if we know what to do with the suffering. So therefore, let's look at some of the virtues of suffering. Because stigma and denial and rejection of suffering, when we don't know it, actually exacerbate the suffering. It creates the suffering even more. Because the cause of suffering is aversion and anger and denial and ignorance of it. So by practicing these, which are the actual cause of suffering, it only can create more suffering. So part of the problem is we don't know these things are the cause of the sufferings. We don't know that, we don't want the result, but we are creating the causes of it. It's just like we don't know where the sand is falling from, but we keep throwing them up ourselves like this. You keep throwing sand in the sky and then keep saying, well, who the hell is putting this over my head? We keep throwing like this. That's what's happening, actually. Unconsciously, of course. As soon as you realize it's your sand that you threw, then of course, it's my own, gosh, nobody looking. Then you stop. Then you stop throwing the sand. Right? Our thoughts are firing the wrong views, wrong understanding, misperception, incorrect views, untested ideas, opinions. We believe in those wrong views as correct view, and we follow them, we act on the behalf of them, we feel them, and we don't realize we cause them all emotionally. Once upon a time, there was just bad thoughts, and then became feelings, and then become language, then become habit, and then become body. Body means made up of many things. Made up of many things. So no wonder there are certain chemical imbalances are manifesting there because there have been repeated anger or blame or guilt or attachment and unrealistic expectations. They were never intercepted or recognized as the cause of the misery. And when one understands that, there is awareness. So this awareness, or what I call, one has to realize. So one has to realize about one's own thoughts, one's own feelings, opinions, assessment, everything. If one's thought is, when one understands one's thought, there is amazing suspension of all else, that you become completely confronting your thoughts, your mind. As soon as you become aware of your mind becomes very, very cognitive, and therefore become aware. So it becomes very luminous. It's just like looking at the light. As soon as you look at the mind, it is not a form or object or thing that you can measure or weigh or have a color or shape or gender, let alone all the other things that we think self is. It doesn't have any of the characteristic that we think self is, that I am, that I don't have. We get so lost in the jungle, we don't really look at the light. When you become more cognitive of the mind, it becomes very clear and cognitive, what we call clarity. Your mind becomes very clear. As soon as you become clear, the thoughts and emotions that you have slowly dispel by just like bringing light into the dark room. The darkness is wasn't there, isn't there. It's just the absence of the light that makes the darkness so strong. If you bring in light, the light means something you do. It's not a physical light. The awareness, you got to tune in mind. You see, you got many nice stations, Some station we never tune to, So meditation is an in-tunement practice. It's in tuning your mind through prayer, through devotion, through discipline, and you tune your mind to that state of centeredness. And then when you become aware of your clarity, the mindness of your mind, it's not a physical thing, but awareness. Awareness simply is light, because light makes you to see. And then you see the self is not this or that. It's not the things that we describe, What is so unloved about you? What is so unworthy about you? What is so boring about you? I can't see nothing. I can see pure light. I can see only pure light. So we do not hold on to these erroneous designations, what we think is self, what it's depressed about, what is anxious about, all these things. Even the primary knower itself, it hasn't paid attention to for a while, let alone anything else it has problems with. First, you've got to be cognitive of the knower, the consciousness itself. Yeah? When you pay attention to yourself, which is what we call meditation, learning to do meditation properly helps you to suspend all your thoughts and choose to focus on particular techniques. And this particular one I mentioned is stop all, just bring to the awareness, bare awareness of your mind. And when you become cognizant of that, then where is this self, or I, that I am or I have, I don't have, all these I-grasping related problems manifest. These are just erroneously created out of confusion. And so when one is able to understand this awareness, then what do we call lightness? But this lighting up yourself is a practice called meditation. Once you do it more than a few times, then it enlightens you. It makes you feel the skins will glow, your senses are sharp, mind is tame, thoughts are clear, objects are better, and you can see the dates of the milk now. Yes, it's expired. Oh yeah, that's expired too. Yes, I've been drinking this, all this expired milk all this time. No wonder I got sick. Then you start deciding not to think like that, or think about it like that. And then you start, move, leave, basically depart. And so you no longer go into the past, because depression is this incessant going back in the past. And anxiety is almost like similar things will happen anytime. Cannot make any good decision because one thinks of the same thing may repeat, or whatever one may do may not bring any profitable benefit. So it's very, very pessimistic outlook. When you have no torch, you can't see the date. So it's good to have a light, especially when you travel. Life is a very long journey. You should have always a torch with you. I'm not talking about those battery ones. I'm talking about the awareness one. We should bring the torch of awareness. First is, suffering is prevalent. That's first awareness. Suffering is just everywhere. So, second is, the suffering teaches us, reduces our pride. We are not beyond suffering. We are human beings. We have karma. We are often deluded. Of course, we will have sufferings. But you become more aware, but they too are impermanent. You become aware that even sufferings, though they are prevalent, but they're impermanent. So you become aware of the impermanence of the sufferings. And then particularly with people whose sufferings impinge on us, like people who are suffering like you are a health professional, but you have difficult clients and so on. But actually, why are you so depressed about the depressed patients? That's your job. That's your commitment. You should think like that. This person gives me a reason to wake up every morning. This person gives me reason to train and have a profession all these years that I can at least provide my service. Instead of being depressed about the depressed patient, one should have usefulness of one's existence. See, you got awareness, another awareness, usefulness. It employs you. It keeps you fit. It keeps your registration intact. and also, the moment you understand, you're aware of this awareness of prevalence of suffering, impermanence of suffering, and usefulness of suffering, because suffering teaches us to practice the best qualities of humanity: generosity, the compassion, the tolerance, the forgiveness. You have worked so hard, you earned so much, but for what? If you have someone not to share with, then it gives a reason. You have good reason to share the things you have saved for. Then you have good reason. So you don't think that you shouldn't have a dependent in your family. Those who have no dependent are lonely and suffering more. So it's good to have dependent, whether they are your patient or whoever it is. Don't try to idealize that, wish I didn't have a dependent. Those who have dependent, do not have dependent, they actually don't have meaning. They have no one to look for. They'll hug a dog or something. Of course, dog is also dependent, sure. Dog is probably more useful to us than we are to them. Some people draw a lot of happiness by having pet because at least dog never argue, Dog doesn't have the same degree of delusion and selfishness as human beings have, They just have a small food and they stay happy, You see, even dog we do it selfishly for ourselves. If he's limping, some people put down when the dog is no longer walking well. They put down the limping dog. See, that's the story. That's a clear-cut reason whether we are keeping the dog for us or for the dog. So it's very clear. It's important to understand the usefulness of suffering. As I said, it reduces all afflictions, particularly pride, because all suffering are created by afflictions. So when you experience suffering, it prevents you from practicing suffering and its causes. So you got to give some tick. You got to tick the sufferings. Tonight we should tick the boxes. What good suffering does. That's the Buddhist approach. What Buddha said, Arya Satya. Dukkha Arya Satya means seeing the suffering as noble, means it ennobles you when you see the suffering. Because then you know there is no one who is not affected by sufferings. Most are not even aware what they are caused by. And hence they are completely hands tied down. They don't want suffering, but they're creating it unconsciously. Now when you know that, you become much more, attentive to those who are around you, who you have a responsibility, commitment, whether it's professional or whether relationship, whatever you have. You feel not judging them for their suffering. You don't feel angry at their suffering, because anger is your suffering already. So how could a suffering person help another suffering person, So you realize that this person who may be needy and demanding is actually see whether you are a cow or not, whether you're a milkable cow or not. So if you're a milkable cow, you should let them milk the cow. Otherwise, why you're here eating the grass every day for? So we have a service to provide. We have something to offer. Whether it's a mother or sister or only brother or uncle or grandfather or stepfather, I'm sure there's one in every one of us that you have to pull up your socks and be there for someone whose suffering makes us to practice kindness, whose suffering forces us to practice generosity, and selflessness and sacrifices. If we don't have anyone to practice this, we will feel even more miserable. So therefore, let's give a break to suffering. Suffering actually makes our existence more useful and cohesive. Another reason that suffering is, suffering evokes compassion. One of the highest virtue of all spiritual traditions of humanity teaches how to practice kindness. But you don't practice kindness to people who are not suffering. Kindness is an understanding of suffering and then attend to their need. And particularly in professional affairs, compassion is very important skill on top of your professional knowledge. Not just by what is written in the books, but really integrating compassionate way of speaking, way of attending to the patient, to the clients, to the families. No matter how good a professional you are, however skilled you are, it's considered very secondary skill if it doesn't go with compassion. Compassionate one understands suffering and the severe problem that it presents, and therefore has wisdom to dispense skillful, kind words, a small act of kindness, even though you have to go out of your way a little bit. maybe textbook doesn't say you should practice kindness. It says give this drug, if not raise the dosage. It says things like that. But you try to add whatever is going to complement to the benefit of the person. So therefore, suffering evokes compassion. Suffering tests whether we have compassion or not. So next time, instead of feeling angry to someone who has a depression or anxiety, either in a family or a client, instead one should feel this person is actually at least making me to practice kindness and selflessness. And when you do practice those are the highest giving, though no material value could match. So therefore, when we practice, when we have people suffering any kind of mental illnesses, such as depression and anxiety, when we know that this is the benefactor of compassion. Yeah, this is the one who is actually sponsoring me to practice. Otherwise, you can say, I want to practice compassion today, but nobody's going there. I want to feel like practicing compassion, but you don't have anyone. So if you have people who have debilitating illnesses, like depression and anxiety, particularly that are connected with you, we all have a moral responsibility to practice compassion, not out of religious mentality, just as a humanity. You will feel your day is meaningful when you give something like that. You would not know how to suffer yourself like that because you are able to repel the suffering of others by your act of kindness. When somebody knows that they are somebody who cares about them, it can make the suffering a little bit terminated. So those people who actually suffer, they also need to know that somebody cares about them. The nurse or the doctor or the patient or neighbor did talk to them nicely and kindly for a change, on top of whatever their responsibility is. That touches and heals people more than any other thing people do. So this is some of the oldest human values that people need to realize. But this realization of doing things like that comes from this clarity of the mind. We have to have clarity of the mind that recognizes, I must practice compassion. Compassion is only practicable in face of someone who has such suffering such as this. This person has a nice house, he's got other things, he's got all things, but still doesn't have skill to read the past correctly. He cannot read that thing is expired. He's illiterate, so to speak. He cannot read, and he keeps thinking, it's still okay. And you are at least literate, We wanted to get rid of illiteracy, But everybody can read, but cannot read the mind. That's a terrible illiteracy, isn't it? So basically, it's depression and anxiety, and when we do not know holistically how to attend to it, we are illiterate about human mind, what it does and what it has a potential. Another thing is that as soon as you have the understanding of the mind, then you have awareness of the virtue of forgiveness to yourself. If it's yourself you're angry and depressed about, you forgive yourself. There's no one is better than you. Everybody could be very, very half-informed. If you are this bad informed about you, how about other people's information about you? They wouldn't be getting half of that even. So you are the most reliable person that will understand you and forgive you. So we have to realize, first and foremost, we must not seek someone to understand and pardon us. We should forgive ourselves. Yeah. And this doesn't mean that we ignore what happened, but we transformed. I mentioned before, we transformed. We learn from the past. Next time I'm going to see where that damn thing is written. You actually look carefully where the date is written. And you hardly would buy anything that hasn't got a date of expiry. Even buildings, I'm told they're only built to last only 40 years or not more than that. They're not date, but actually the architects know it will be not so good after 40 years. So everything's transient. It's a very important awareness. Your thoughts, your feelings, your stories is all included, of course. So what are you depressed about? So basically you become aware. It is such an ignorance. Depression is caused by ignorance, not by some other afflictions. We should give full understanding that ignorance means unawareness. And when you understand it's an unawareness that is cause of suffering, then we become aware of that. So then we become possessor of that knowledge, and so doing, then we can tread the journey more carefully and skillfully. And then you appear differently to yourself. You actually can resolve to not to think like that about yourself, of others, because they're not anymore like that. Even what you sow is just like a dream. A dream only happens when you sleep. And you were sleeping for a while, or maybe quite a long time, and now you're woken up. This is what I mean, the awakened one. Awakened one is the Buddha means the awakened one. It's not the long ear-lobed Indian, Buddha is anyone who has become aware, they are a Buddha. Buddha is a Sanskrit word, means one who knows. And that's good to have a Buddha image. I don't know, everybody's keeping Buddha image these days. I saw the other day, even Joe Hockey is keeping one in his office. Well, Churchill kept one during the war as well. Gandhi kept one always wherever he went, because they knew that we are awakenable. and look at the Buddha as an example, that the Indian prince who had everything to ask for in life, but felt very many unanswered questions of life, until he really got to understand his mind and its infinite potential that he can unleash. And then he became enlightened one. So what does this enlightened awareness does is it firstly do not reject sufferings, let alone those who are subjected to it. It embraces those who are suffering, and then make oneself useful as a mother or the sister or the brother or the carer or the patient or as the sufferer. That even those who are actually sufferers of depression, you can see it's not their fault. They worked their life so hard to brace the family. They had not a single day free from all these back-breaking duties. Their depression comes from not knowing what is the cause of happiness. But they tried everything, So they didn't get informed, they didn't get educated in Lionel High School. Or anywhere, they never include the subject of mind and how understanding of it will inform us fairly early on, no matter what the scientists are learning or people seeking knowledge are learning, but the one who doesn't know it's himself knows very little. So know thyself. That's that one has to know that one's own mind and its infinite potential. When one knows that, then one accepts the law that everything is impermanent, suffering is prevalent, but they're impermanent. And suffering is not only prevalent, it makes us most useful when we understand them, because it makes us to practice kindness, the highest virtue of life, and giving, and love, and forgiveness. All these things are facilitated when we understand. When we don't understand suffering, we reject them. We stigmatize them. We think it's terrible. We think it's caused by this, caused by that. We always pointing finger to something or events in the past as the cause of your depression or whatever, without realizing that this suffering is caused by this fundamental unawareness. So when you meditate, which means when you become present, when you become aware of aware of the mind, because when you become aware of the mind, it brings you close to the light. Light is never far, it just needs ignition. It needs to be ignited. We all are combustible. We are all burnable. We need to be kindled. We need to have one lamp to lamp it. So that light might come from your faith, if you are a religious person, your faith in God, or whatever it is. These kind of ideas, teachings are very important, because there are lots of people who find after going in the wrong direction many years, and they turn around and they realize the suffering and the people who are suffering in their life are the biggest gift, because they taught us to do some of the most important things in life. Otherwise, where are we going to do those? We believe in them, but we're not doing them. But the moment when we understand the virtue of suffering, then instead of denying, rejecting, and desisting suffering, we actually accept suffering. We actually validate suffering. We understand what are their causes and what can it make us to do. As a result of this, all the skills we have now today in 21st century, amazing medical technology we have, these are all caused by suffering of illness of all kinds, has made so much medical development, so much development that we today enjoy and know, almost not even thinking, wow, how quickly our ordinary physical illness are cured. We don't even realize. But like 50 years ago, there was no cure for that. But they didn't just reject the suffering, the illness like that. They were keenly interested. They put funding into it, and they put people there to study what are their causes. If is that preventable by merely physical contact, or by eating certain things, or doing certain things? We're all learning about health. But what about regarding about mind? And there's not a lot of understanding about how the mind creates sufferings. The affliction creates sufferings. When we don't know that affliction is the cause of suffering, we'll always point finger to something else. When we recognize affliction as a cause of suffering, then we see this debilitating factor in all is the inability to know that. So we want to know something. Knowledge is power, it's called. Yeah, only if you have the valid one. If you have particularly the knowledge about the mind and its workings, then you actually would know how not to let the mind to become subjected to such suffering, and let alone the duration of it. You will have suffering and you will have depression and sadness, but very short-lived ones. Short-lived ones. But who will have time to make it so long and prolonged like that, as if they got no other better things to do? So once you understand suffering, even your own depression becomes not something, a big question about you, but you also try your best. You just didn't have this information, how to pay attention to the fundamental error of judgment of the information about suffering and its causes. We materially try to always point finger to something as a cause of everything without realizing this fundamental unawareness, this mindlessness, this forgetfulness, this lack of education. That's why in Buddhism we say that Buddhist education is called higher education. They say the three higher education, adishiksha in Sanskrit means it's extraordinary knowledge, education, because it tells you about the suffering of the knower. Whatever benefit we have by knowing matter or atoms or anything about in the universe, but still, if the knower itself doesn't know itself, where its sufferings are produced, how did it come, how it can be intercepted and remedied. If we don't know these, then we are indeed debilitated. We don't have ability. We have no knowledge. We're so hopeless in dealing with our own emotional issues. We are highly skilled in handling some material things, but no knowledge of how to work the working machinery of the mind. When you meditate, you will get to see the workings of your mind and how to downscale somebody. Some of the thoughts you can slowly just unsubscribe those thoughts. Unsubscribe those thoughts. So you cut down subscription, please. And then slowly try to subscribe new ones that you thought was non-subscribable. You try to subscribe to this awareness that suffering is prevalent, but they're all impermanent. And when they are, they teach us, they make us to bring the best out of us if we have the former two understanding. When we don't have the understanding of the former two, then we react to suffering to create the suffering double the suffering even more. Look, all kinds of ways of solving the problems in the modern world is about reaction, tit for tat. And instead of solving the problem, it doubles, it triples, it multiplies like no other. When we're not aware of our own action and its consequences, how could we be aware of our thoughts and its consequences? See, the depression is thought consequences. And consequences have consequences. And consequences have consequences and then consequences. There is a Buddhist school called consequentialist. They think that everything is consequences of many things, that nothing is caused by one thing, So if problem is consequences, the solution also has to be what we do will produce the result. So that's why it is important that the defilements and suffering of mental illness like depression therefore highlights the human disability. How able we are to go to moon and Mars and everywhere, but still we don't know how to get to mind. It's so near but so far. We look at some machines, what the mind is doing nowadays. Oh, yes. Oh, there's neural activity there, yes. We're so materialistic, we want to have physical proofs that the mind is there, it works. We don't realize all these things are creation of the mind. Once upon a time, there were just thoughts and ideas only on the paper, they never have. And then slowly, everything is a mentalization, and then physical materialization of mental ideas and thoughts, whether it's architecture, or whether it's rocket science, or whether it's road building, or whether it's a computer, or whatever it is. Once upon a time, there were small just thoughts. Like atomic bomb is a result of thought. It looks so much like anger, the atomic bomb. All bomb looks like anger. When it explodes, it hurts everybody. Nobody escapes injury. Anger is like that. Because it's made to react angrily. Resort to violence is basically anger, and then manifests in physical violence or verbal violence and so on. So, therefore, it questions the purpose of life as well. When when you are suffering, or when you have somebody who is suffering from depression and anxiety and whatever going through, you realize, what is my purpose of life? It is to be of some use. Maybe you have to go to get another bottle of milk somewhere, but you had to do something instead on the way. But maybe maybe you should attend to that. When one is able to see the purpose of one's life is to be helpful, to be useful, to maybe minimize and help someone to suffer less than they are by our skill or our act of kindness or wisdom and compassion. So that's why I would like to say that the best way, therefore, to deal with the depression, anxiety is, first of all, we as an individual must reconnect with people in our lives, loved ones. Depressed people don't realize they have those things, those people. They should first reconnect with the very close people in their life. And they've got to recollect that they have those people. And they must reconnect. They shouldn't stay in that alienation, self-alienation, thinking it's all me. But actually go to them or think about them in your life, what they are, what they have done. You start seeing, when you start remembering, reconnecting people in your life, then it takes yourself out of the picture. It brings them in your picture. Then you see all the good, kind, sacrifice, compassionate things they have done for you. And as a result of this, then the outcome of reconnection is then it brings all the memories of kindness. Then you remember all the kindness, that you were loved, you were given, you were cared, you were cherished, you were protected, and you was everything to them. And you still are. And it's good to know that, because depressed people think they don't have anyone. So therefore they must not only reconnect, but they have to rekindle the memory of the years and months and whole long period of time what they have given towards us, and so on, recalling their kindness, and therefore develop gratitude. When you're busy developing these gratitude and kindness, you don't have time for the other. See, you are now erasing now you're recognizing how to read. Now you don't have time to think that you weren't loved, you're not worthy, you're not good enough. You're actually recalling good memories of the past. Be fair to your past. There are some good things too. Why you have to write those things only in the ledger and not the others? Amazing. You're a very biased historian. Your history will not be accepted. Go and rewrite the story. Shred the first story and rewrite it. So you should try to write some reasonable, well-balanced story of your past and people in your life, and what amazing things they really have done that you have not really thought about. So this is called recollecting who they are and then remembering their kindness and develop gratitude. Yeah? Gratitude. This doesn't allow you to feel resentful or angry what people didn't do to you. And when you have these, then you feel what you call affection. You have people towards whom you have passion and affection for, and whose doings are important to you, and their act of kindness still buzz in your ears. They still make you feel grateful and thankful and happy. See, now you can make depression impermanent. You don't just sit there, my depression is impermanent, my depression is impermanent, oh, my depression is impermanent. No. I'm not saying you should believe in impermanent. I'm saying you got to do the impermanent thing. You got to do the impermanent thing. Yeah? You just don't think those things and do what you don't think usually. So you have to do the impermanent. People think Buddhism or religion is about beliefs. In Buddhism, no. You got to do it. You start doing the impermanent thing, then it's better than believing. It really sees the effect of the action, consequences. of the action. Now you start thinking that this is valid stories. Everyone has been brought with love and kindness by someone from our parents onwards all the way till now. She still loves you more than anybody else. Even though you're grown up 45 years or so, but you are still her youngest daughter or whatever. So she still loves you. Maybe the other side of the world she lives, maybe she have even passed away, but her soul, wherever she is, still loves you. You've got to remember that. You are completely allowed. This is legal. You're completely free to practice this. And it's really useful because it stops the negative thoughts. Because you're busy thinking good thoughts. This is called analytical meditation. You analyze very rationally and logically. You don't make up things what didn't happen in the past. Of course you will not. Like the negative things. But realistically assess and recollect, remember. And when you can do that, then you feel grateful. And then you feel love. Then you can, it's possible to love again. Have people to love again. And try to revive your love towards them. And love the life that you actually have that are good. Then you start seeing things you actually have. Because depressed people don't see the things they actually have. They just close their eyes. See, the light and darkness, very two different functions. Light makes you to see. Darkness, close your eyes. So when you're seeing that you have all these people, everybody got at least, I'm told, at least 32 people that are really close to you. And they mean everything to you. Some more than others. Maybe they have not always stayed that important in your life, but they have been replaced by others. So you actually have a community of people who care about you, who really want you to become well, who want you to regain your consciousness and not stay in the past. And they will love you for that. And you could not do no greater thing than changing your attitude of yourself and scrap the past, particularly that you have wrongly written, and rewrite the past in that manner. Yeah? And then, now you're fit to practice self-compassion. Oh, I'm sorry, I've let you suffer all this long. I know, you never paid attention to me. I was trying to tell you, but you just keep ignoring me. Oh, thank goodness, finally you paid attention to me. Then you're now heeding. Your heart is heeding too. Then you're hearing. There's communication between the head and the heart. Then you felt that you are heeded to. You've really listened to by your own heart. Then you are now not angry at you, not canceling you, not rejecting you, because you have a completely picture that you haven't told about you. And you are now telling that, and you're meeting this story about your past that you have just not allowed to tell. It's just like that you've been banned from telling the good story. You have this terrible regime called ego that has suppressed you from telling the true story. Now you have revolutionized this and overthrown this government and put a new government. And as a result of this shall now rule. This shall reign from here onwards. Self-kindness. Yeah. You will not see the kindness of other people. You will not see the forgivingness of other people. You will not see the generosity of other people that they have already practiced until you start practicing that yourself. Once you start doing that, then your eyes will lit. Then your mind will begin to witness a lot more clearly. And when you have developed the self-compassion, your suffering has taught you to see others' sufferings are much more worse than mine. Mine is just almost like comparably much lesser. But previously I just magnified just this. And that was only me and my problem. And that was the problem. Now you begin to see that other sufferings are even much more serious than my own. And then you are one out of yeah, 1 out of 5 who suffer from depression, but at least, you don't think you are 1 out of 5. You think, I am 5 out of 5. So you are with people who have sufferings. You're not trying to isolate yourself. Because when you have self-compassion, you tend to feel fit to practice compassion to others. And then you do that with wisdom, discerning that when you start developing compassion, then you have understood the illness of suffering in general, and particularly of mental illness like depression and anxiety over whatever. So whether you should suffer long or short is how quickly you gain your consciousness. Who wants to be unconscious? If there's unconscious people, we will all call somebody. Please, there's an unconscious person here. We dial 111 or 000 or what? Something triple anyway. See, in Buddhism, we dial triple gem. We dial the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha. So we remember the awakened one, that we can become awake, and then the teachings, and then our friends that help us to remember the light. And so we don't stay in the darkness for long. Because sufferings are also not permanent. And why is some people suffering long, other people's suffering is very short? Even 2 people have the same medical condition, but some people are responding very well with treatment, others are not. There definitely is a mental factor holding it back. So, particularly if your illness is mental, then you have to primarily not only work with the medication, but try to use some meditation. Meditation is nowadays practiced, and almost everybody thinks it's good, but you've got to learn it properly. Learn it properly and develop a discipline, because it is not a trendy new thing people do. It's a healthy and intelligent thing. They're called intelligent emotions. When and where do you cultivate intelligent emotion? In meditation. And they are trying to use MRI to show that people who are meditating, how much neural activities are manifesting from those who are meditating on compassion, as opposed to those who are not. So they even can show you the effect the meditation has to your health, not to mention to your mental health. And if you do regularly, then it will, of course, we become at least, then we are more aware when somebody is really, really difficult and suffering a lot. Then we really know that I have to practice compassion to this person. It's my duty to do something what I can. And then you don't feel like saying, I don't want another one in my life like this, I want to go somewhere else. You don't feel like you have to run and leave. You stay where difficult persists, because it might change you for good. Yes, some of the best transformation people have come in the most hardest situations, not in easy, plain sailing situations. So not everybody will have the skill and ability to transform very quickly, but once we start developing our attitude in this manner, the prevalence of suffering, impermanence of it, and then usefulness of it, that it reduces our pride, it becomes benefactor of our compassion, and it therefore allows us to see the usefulness of our existence, and then we feel connected with people, and then you start going out doing things with your time. Then you actually think there are things to do in the morning and the afternoon and on the weekend for others, with other people, not just for yourself, maybe I can do this for him. And maybe I can take a walk with this person. Maybe I can do this once a week at the local school or library or your community. Or when you start doing things, then you have consequences of that doing. And you don't have the idle mind that is only thinking negative thoughts, churning again and again. So it's people who are showing sign of recovery from depression, they actually do things with themselves, for themselves, with others, on a routine basis, whether it's weekly or daily or periodical. You stay committed to that, and it really, really makes you to grow and change. And I'm sure you have done that tonight by listening to me, but most importantly, that we must cherish what Buddhist teaching says. We all have Buddha nature, which means we are all awakenable. We are all tea lights. We just have to meet the candle, the ignition. And that is when you pay attention. Meditation means paying attention, to become present. So maybe now I can take a few questions before we conclude.
Thank you for sharing your knowledge. This question, I'm thinking probably has an obvious answer, but perhaps some of the hardest suffering is watching others suffer and not knowing how to help. And that can perhaps sometimes put you in a bit of a spin of your own, you become perhaps more involved in your own suffering. Do you have any words of advice on that?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's when the suffering of the other person's mind is not quite as easily irascible as we might we are fit enough to know this and we have the tools to do that. Others are not quite attentive to this knowledge or this line of thinking. So how can we influence them? So first we must practice, they say, generosity. We should just give time to win their trust, win their respect, before you offer your insight. Because your insight might feel a little bit too imposition, too much for them. First, they need to see real act of kindness, gentleness, kind speech, and maybe doing small things with them without even talking about the issue so much, so that their mind is out of themselves by your doing things for them. So act of generosity. Generosity is the first most important thing. Second is when you're generous, then you have actually bridged this gulf between them and you. Because most people who are so suffering like that is very much an island. They don't want to know people. They don't want to tell people. They don't want people to come to them. They are very, very sort of dismissive of what people can do to them. So it's very important that this is what I mean by you need to reconnect, have to help them to reconnect with someone maybe, maybe they need to really reconnect with the mother, but they haven't. And maybe you can play a role, some skillful way, giving your time generously, how to help them to reconnect with someone like their mothers. Because lots of people's depression is because what reconciliation they didn't do. They're depressed about that. And nobody's helping them to reconnect with that. They think that person should be cut out, that's it. They don't realize how taxing that it is. By axing somebody from their life over a miserable issue and then think there's still valid a reason to do that is actually hurting them every day. So some of the skills we can do is help people to reconnect themselves with someone that they are not reconnecting, they're not thinking kindly of, they're not forgiving them, they're not pardoning them, they're not thinking or speaking kindly of them. How can we influence them? And so that is a very important one, because they need to be also feel that they can space their mind, that they can do that. But to do that, we have to have some kind of influence. Maybe like coming to a talk like this will help people to understand, oh, maybe I need reconnecting with my mom or my dad or whatever. Even though you don't have a huge problem, but you realize some of the resentment and still sore. It's not treated there. So when we can influence them directly or indirectly to do that, then we have practiced what we call generosity. Generosity doesn't mean giving material things. Most of the time it's time. We give time to help them to heat to their heart and then reconnect with them. And people do wish they are friends with their mother or father or brother, but they're not. They're not thinking friendly thoughts about them. And they are thinking angry thoughts about them. How can we change their angry thoughts into friendly thoughts? And because making them believe that they actually love each other. They don't realize that now. That otherwise, why they are so angry? Everyone who we are angry once upon a time was loved one. So they need to regain that love with somebody, at least from their side, you know. And so that's why it's important that somebody is suffering. We cannot totally change them overnight or over even a few weeks, but it will. We have faith that we have to put in our heart and mind more than what we can actually do that we think fix them. We got to keep including them in our hearts, in our prayers, in our meditations, as much as that you actually go and talk to them. But maybe sometimes you just have to include them in your prayers, light a candle, do your little prayer, make them feel sitting next to your right or left, depending what gender they are. And then think of them changing their mind and heart just as you are doing it for them. Sometimes we just have to need to, they say, please include me in your prayers. How do you include people in your prayers? Yeah, those we couldn't directly influence, we should include them in our prayers. Buddhist teaching says, think of your father on your right, mother on the left, whenever you do meditation. And sitting there with you, you're sharing these, any kind of disrespectful thing you have done, whatever, by my including them, may this purify all my arrogance, all my stupid reactions. May I be able to speak kindly to and about them, respectfully about them as a result of doing this. So with this you include them in your prayers. It's very important. So you may not be able to change them totally, but you can definitely, if it has consequences.
Thank you very much for speaking to us tonight. I'm just thinking that so much suffering that people encounter in their lives is often encountered in childhood. When a child encounters suffering, it will stay with them. And as we grow beyond childhood, that childhoodness may continue to suffer. And it becomes hidden. It's shrouded in darkness. So how is it that as adults, we can spread the light of awareness onto that suffering? Although that may be so difficult, it will reveal so much more suffering. How do we cope with that when the light of awareness will possibly cause more harm?
The inclusiveness of everyone in life, that they all be in or become the domain of for whose sake you are doing anything out of goodwill, will have its impact. But the suffering in childhood is completely understood. Some childhood sufferings are much more severe and very, very sad, more sadder ones than the others. But if you look at the actual sufferings of other people who are displaced and who got war-torn places, whose whole country got taken, and whose whole life saving was robbed and destroyed and all these things, actually the way how we depict the story child who has been exposed to violence and abuse and poverty and all of that. Of course, we treat that these things should not have happened in their child's life, and we try our best to prevent them from exposing to those. But life, unfortunately, isn't like that. So we have to understand that, of course, some people don't suffer karmically, even if they were exposed to such things. But they, like I was exposed to all of that. Our country was robbed and we lost everything, and all our people were dying or killed on the way and still being killed. But we see that as a symptom of the human greed, hatred, and ignorance. And it affects some regions by one incident than others, but actually it's everywhere, it's prevalent. And so, therefore, this prevalence of the suffering, awareness of the prevalence of suffering without thinking they shouldn't suffer that, they're too young, they shouldn't suffer that, they're too this. Of course, we have all these ideals we wish we could protect. We would, and any awareness we can raise in the conduct of adult to treat, because those adult children who are exposed to such abuse or hardships or suffering from adult probably were mainly also those adults were also exposed to such things when they were young. So it's a whole vicious cycle of suffering is very evident. So if this kind of education becomes the norm in us as an adult, and then slowly try to influence our younger generation also to become exposed to such line of discourse. If we can include such kind of philosophy in early education, there's definitely this world and people will become much more tolerant to suffering rather than rejecting or reactive to sufferings. And we try to hide suffering. We try to make as though life shouldn't have sufferings. So that probably is a wrong approach. There is suffering in life, and we can't say it's the fault of the child's karma and things like that. And even parents don't understand that. Let alone child can understand. You can't say it's your karma or you're doing, But it's a bit more, much more complex than saying it's your fault, So that's why it's important to see that how could that one attitude of a person, if you have this kind of way of thinking and believing as a philosophy of life, and you start actually thinking like this and behaving as talking like this to people, I'm sure, particularly those who are young or whoever are listening, they start hearing these things. If they haven't heard or read an important conversation such as on the topics of like that, they think it's all fault of chemicals, they're all fault of parents or where they're brought up, and they will always see the problem out there. It's all out there. It's not a thing you can do from here. So when we start, when we can really include positive psychology, holistic psychology, into the mainstream practitioner of psychology, and then try to expand the horizon of psychology, not just based on stats, but based on human actual act of understanding and kindness and goodwill, and make them to become a norm of practice in every household. If we can influence that way, then of course when people are brought up with people speaking kindly, never use swear words, and use very kindly and act very compassionately, respectfully towards each other, and then of course the child will be very much would never think of doing anything what they haven't seen. So society can change only when individuals make an impact in the group they belong to.
What type or style of meditation would you recommend for people that are depressed or anxious?
Of course there is a school of thought that people who are depressed shouldn't do any meditation. Some meditation may not be appropriate. But of course, it a lot depends to the people who are teaching the meditation, rather than what type of meditation it is. And I think mainly the people who are depressed need to have a lot of cognitive therapy. They need to be taught how to think intellectually. So what we usually is a more analytical meditation is probably better than one-pointed silent meditation. Compassion meditation, loving kindness meditation are very useful, because this focuses on others who they love to, who they engender loving kindness to. And so that they are mainly analytical meditation. And loving kindness meditation is an analytical meditation. And mainly hands-on doing things meditation. Doing your work lovingly, happily, gracefully is a very good meditation. I say that motherhood is the best full-time meditation. In Buddhism, we call it that mother's kindness is the best example, because she totally gives wholeheartedly, whether it's rain or shine or whatever. There's no excuses. She's completely dedicated, and so if you look at your mother and how she has attended to your other siblings and start looking at that act of kindness, people are busy doing things with hands and the body. They usually have no time for the mind to stay depressed. So they got to really get up and do things. Doing things with them, for them, probably is a good help meditation rather than too much in the mind. So, yeah. Thank you.
Just being mindful of time, if there's one more quick question anyone would like to ask before we have to leave for the evening. Okay.
So, yeah. Do you want me to say that? Yes, so before John has wrap it up, I would like to say thank you for your attendance. What I have spoken is mainly importance of how to respond to suffering of depression and anxiety more holistically by looking at suffering as something, as a gift to each of us as a professional or carer or loved ones, that how that can instigate us to become more aware and to give things, provide services with much more understanding and awareness, and how can we shift to the other through our skillful way that we can actually reach and touch their heart. So it's mainly based on that. It is not aimed and designed to be a talk on the actual theory and practice of depression and anxiety as such, because there's a lot of literature out there. They're often being validated or invalidated or changed as study goes. But these Buddhist responses are as old as the rock and the mountains. So drink cool water from there, not the bottled ones that are dated. Thank you very much.